There we go. We are live. All right. Amazing. Thanks for
Yeah.
doing this. Welcome to, well, now it's actually becoming a show, even though, anyways. So let's get right into it. What is it like to be you?
What is it like to be me? What a fun question. I think it's adventurous to be me.
Okay.
Um, I have been in the entrepreneurial space like almost all of my life. I grew up in an entrepreneurial home. Didn't start my first business until 2004, but it's, constant change and growth. And I'm a mother of four grown kids. I have a granddaughter who is in sixth grade. And so there's always fun and exciting things going on in my life.
Okay. Nice. Adventurous, very entrepreneurial. So you grew up in an entrepreneurial household, yeah?
I did. Both of my parents were business owners.
Okay. Was it always in your mind, or like was it always just okay, I'm gonna be a business owner too because of that, or was it kind of like maybe, maybe not?
In my group of friends, all of my friends' parents were business owners. And so I grew up with the idea that that's just what you do, right?
Right.
It just was
Oh
what
my
normal
God.
was for me. Um, at first I didn't know what kind of business I wanted to have. I knew I didn't want to live in the small town in Wyoming that I grew up in. And so I went and I worked corporate for a while, and it wasn't a good fit. I was
Mm,
always the one that was coming up with a new idea, taking over leading a project, and just running with things. And oftentimes my employer was like, I didn't hire you for ideas. I hired you just to do this thing. And it's like, but there's so much more than just this thing. And so I remember even later in my career, before I did launch my first business, they would tell me before a staff meeting, like, we really need you to be on board with this, because if you're not on board, no one else is going to follow what we want. And I'm like, well, I can't fake being on board if I think what you're doing is not for the benefit of those of
right.
us doing the work, right? It's like you're making these big decisions and you're 5 tiers removed from what actually is going to happen for those of us in the lower tiers. And so finally, when I said, this is time to start my own business, I had gained all of this additional perspective beyond what I had learned from my parents. And it was perfect timing for me.
Mm, okay. This is fascinating to me because what a different world. I grew up in a family of factory workers. Like, and so
No,
and so our perspective was all like the only way to make a living and the only way to make money is to work in a factory, or if you're lucky, work in an office.
right.
That's it, right? But
That's
businesses or any of this, like, totally outside of the scope, and let alone
wow.
online businesses. I got called crazy and so many different names when I said I'm gonna start an online business and make money online. Oh my God. So that's
Yeah.
that's fascinating. So how was it for
You
you?
know,
Mhm. You wanted
I
to
was gonna
say
say
something?
people said that to me. I was gonna say people said the same thing to me when I went into
Okay.
online business. They were like, "What? You're never gonna make a living doing that." And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "I think I can. Why wouldn't I be able to? That's the direction that business is moving in." So
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't matter what your background was. I think that your friends, when you say you're going to do something new and innovative, they're like,
Right.
oh no, that's not possible. Or why would you do that? Just do the
Yeah.
norm. This is the proven method. Just get in line, follow, what society tells you to do.
Yeah. That's true. That is very true. Why would you do something different? Why would you do something new? That's so weird.
Right? It is.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So how was it for you,
Uh,
the transition from when you like were an employee and you were like, this is doesn't make sense. I know how to do this better, but they're
mhm.
not letting me speak up, to actually being a business owner and working for yourself.
Mm. I think again, going back to my childhood, when I was 11, I started working in our family store. My dad owned an electronics and appliance store. So we sold, ovens, washer dryers, refrigerators, stereo systems, which is way before your time, and all of the different components. That was the thing. And so I learned about customer service. I learned about sales. I learned how to do payroll. I learned how to be a bookkeeper. We had a repair shop as part of our service. So I learned how to schedule repair calls. And by the time I was 11, and this is really dating me, but microwaves were a brand new thing. They had just come out. And so at 11, I was teaching women how to cook meals in a microwave oven. And so, now we have words like niching and target audience and, sales funnels and
Uh-huh.
client journey, customer journey. Those things weren't a thing back then that we called by those names, but it was really important. It was like, why is a microwave oven important for a family? What's in it for them? Well, for the mom, it was to save time. It was to get her out of the kitchen so she could be at the soccer game or so she could join her husband at that cocktail party or, whatever the deal was. And so I learned from an early age how to really what was important to the client that we were serving. And it was different, a mom, and back in those days, it was mostly single income homes. Moms were stay at home moms, dads were the breadwinners. And so, what did the family dynamic look like? Why did they need that new TV? Was it a want? What was it going to do for them? Why did they
Mm,
want a stereo? Not all families had stereos or televisions in their home when I was growing up. That was a luxury item. And so, how did you sell luxury to a middle class family? How did you attract them into your store? So, when I started my first business, it was a mortgage business. And
mm,
so, I was able to take a lot of those principles. Like I mentioned, I taught cooking classes when I was 11. So, one of the things that we did, we dealt with families who had less than perfect credit and we helped them get qualified for homeownership so they could qualify for a mortgage. So I took that principle of teaching and educating people into my mortgage business. And so we hosted community events. I collaborated with title companies, with realtors, with home inspectors. And we brought them in and we taught these people who had never thought that they would be able to afford or qualify for a home, and we let them know this is what you need
mm,
with your credit. If you have problems with your credit, we have a repair company that we work with. We can send you to them, work on your credit. So when you come back to us, we can have you work with these group of realtors that we work with. And so there was this referral system, right? And so we became known as the person who could get a loan closed that our competition couldn't. And so we had this reputation of the go-to agency in our city that if a file fell apart at the closing table, we could do a Hail Mary, right? Let's go and talk to the people at Clearview Mortgage and let's see what they can do. And maybe we can still get these people in their home and get it closed. And so by using education, by showing that you care for people, right? We understand why it's important to have home ownership, right? Building generational wealth for your family, having lower costs than what rent is going to be, creating that investment, all of those things. And for some people, it was the pride of home ownership. Many of them were first time homeowners in their family. So it was a
mm,
really big deal for their identity and who they wanted to become. And so again, we didn't have all these words of niching and your ideal client avatar back then, but it was something that my dad had taught me before those words were even available. So it was really
mm,
easy for me with my personal giftedness. I'm very administrative, I'm highly organized, I'm very system driven. I don't know if you're into, different kinds of psychographic testing and whatever, but there's an assessment out there from the Why Institute. And my why is to find a better way. And my better
Mm,
way helps people find the right way to do it for them. And that's how I have run all of my businesses that I've had over the years is I'm constantly looking to innovate. There has to be a better way. Is it more efficient? Does it provide better service? Whatever that change may be. And so I think that I'm so thankful that my parents were business owners and
mm,
I was able to grow up with that being second nature. Um, where
yeah.
for some people, a lot of the clients that I work with, in fact, they've been in corporate all their lives and now they want something different or they want something more. So they're straddling the fence of corporate, wanting to build a business that they can, move into, but they're really starting from scratch and they may have learned a piece of the pie in the position that they were in. But for many, walking into business ownership is a brand new venture.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
before the words were invented, right? Ideal client avatar or client journey and whatnot. How did you learn it, or like what was the process for you? Or how did you get to understand these principles? Did you call it
Mm.
different? Did you call it differently, or how did that work? And how did your brain kind of process it?
So I'm a big believer in having community. So when I started this business, it came out of the failure of my mortgage business back in
Mm,
2008. Um, the mortgage industry imploded in the US. And so businesses like mine just couldn't recover. So when I started my business initially, um, I found a mentor.
mm,
And it was like, I don't know what I don't know. So I should talk to somebody who's further down the line, which was really helpful. So then when I got into the online space, I needed to find a mentor for that too. And so there was a woman that I had met through networking when I owned my mortgage business, and she was in the online space. And at the time, I thought, that is just dumb. That is just weird. People want to go and see you face to face. And she's like, I'm telling you, this is the wave of the future. And so when I realized I wasn't going to be able to save my mortgage business, she was who I went to. She had been in that space for a couple of years. She saw the trends, she saw what was happening. And so I really was able to ask her questions and model my business after what I saw her doing successfully. And, from inception of my online business, I was generating six figures within 90 days, and I had 11 people who were working for me. And so you can do it very quickly. And, you know, there was no handbook, there was no how to. Everything was evolving. And so it was a lot of, well, let's try this. Let's see if this works. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Let's tweak this. And oh, this is working. Let's keep doing this. Right. And as algorithms, algorithms have been around forever. We just haven't talked about them the way that we do so commonly now. But as the algorithms grew and changed, we had to figure those things out. So some of it was trial and error, of course, as anything in a new industry or technology is, but then it's surrounding yourself with the people that you need to have. You know,
mm,
John Maxwell, I don't know if you're familiar with who he is, but he's a leadership guru. And he
yeah.
says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And
Mm,
so you look for people who don't have your skill set, that you don't have to be the expert in absolutely everything. Focus on what you are going to be great at, be exceptional at those things, bring in other people who are great at the things that you're not, and you create so much more than you can on your own. And so that's really been my philosophy from the beginning.
mm, okay, that's awesome.
And this is kind of a fun caveat is my children are grown. My children and I have run businesses together.
Oh
And
wow,
yeah, each of
that's
us
cool.
has a different skill set in what we do, which again,
That's cool.
the sum of all of us together makes so much more than any one of us trying to run a business on our own.
Mm,
So,
nice. What would you think? What would you say were the keys of making it so quickly? You said you did it quite quickly. In the
sure.
was it a second business or was it a third business?
It was my second business. And, with the loss of my mortgage business, I looked at going back and getting a job, but so
Mm,
many mortgage brokers were out of work all at the same time. And so the market was flooded with people looking for work.
right.
And I went to see some headhunters and they said, "Oh, you are so marketable. We could get you into a job easily making $45,000 a year." Well, I had created a lifestyle way above that level. And it was like, well, that doesn't sound promising. Not to mention, again, just all of the competition out there. How long was that going to take? And so I needed to figure out how to make money fast to replace the salary that I had lost when
Mm,
the mortgage industry imploded. And so, when you don't have a safety net, you are far more motivated than if you
right.
have a job and you're transitioning into a side hustle, right? It's like, okay, well, I need to replace this income. So I'll just work at it on the weekends or after hours or on my lunch hour. No, it was sink or swim, right? I had a mortgage, I had a car payment. At that time, I still had two kids at home. And
Mm,
so it was like there were people that were depending on me in order to, provide support. And so that was my huge motivator. It was truly sink or swim, figure it out,
okay.
or I didn't want to know what or was.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had to pinpoint or highlight some, let's say, three or four main keys besides your motivation, and obviously you had a big why, right? That's always like a big why. Big having a
Mhm.
big why to like really go all in, which obviously you
Right.
had. What were some of the key points that allowed you to actually make this work so quickly?
Sure. Well, first of all, you have to have a business plan. So many people go into business and they don't take the time because it's hard to do a business plan. And that doesn't mean that you have to do the, 40-page business plan with all of the financial projections and looking for funding kind of parts. But what you do need to do is say, this is where I am today. This is what I want to do and or sell, right? This is who I want to sell to. This is the problem they have. This is my solution. And then this is how I'm going to communicate it to them. And so I think that's the number one thing. And then two, when you look at this ideal avatar person, one of the big mistakes that I see people make is they want to create one super avatar. So they take all of these characteristics from all of these different people and they throw them into this ideal person. Well, what happens when you put all of these characteristics into one identity is that your messaging gets muddied down. And so you can serve more than one avatar. And I'll say this one of my clients serves two very different people. One is executive women who are looking to make a change in their life. One is male business owners who are looking to exit their business. Two
Mm,
different avatars, right? Could she work with women who are looking to sell their business? Yes, she could, but it just so happens that men are naturally attracted to her in that realm. Could she help men want to make a change in their life? Maybe they went through being fired and they're looking at figuring out what are my next steps. Absolutely, she could. But the way that she has chosen to serve are two very different people. So if she pulled all that messaging together into one super avatar, nobody would know what she was talking about. Nobody would understand her messaging, right? And so I
Mm,
think it's really important to look at first your personal branding. Who are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? What problems do you solve? What solutions do you have? Then you look at who do I want to serve? And you need to build it out. It isn't just I serve women 25 to 38 who live in Chicago. No, you want to know, are they a mother? Are they a single mother? Are they an empty nester? You know, where are they at? Where do they want to go? Because you and your business is a vehicle to help them achieve whatever they're aspiring towards, right? And so then your messaging becomes a bridge between who you are, what you do, what they want, what they need, where they're going. And so you can talk very specifically to who they are. I had a client who was, she called herself a transition coach for women. I was like, what does that even mean? You know, a transition for a woman could be
mm,
getting married, getting divorced, having a baby, losing a baby, having breast cancer, you know, being a caregiver for her parents. What does that mean? Losing a spouse. Talking to each of those demographics is very different. You can't talk to them all under one roof. Could she help all of those people? Absolutely, she could, and she did, but we needed to figure out a plan. And then you need to look at what I call the rhythm of your business.
mm,
What are you selling? When are you selling? How are you selling? Because all of that works into your marketing plan, which again, your marketing plan should be a segment in what your business plan is all about. Because you need to know who you are, where you're at, where you're going, who you serve, how are you serving them, how are you communicating to them what you're offering. And so all of those things are really important. And then you need to have some kind of processes and procedures, standard operating procedures, right? You need to have a methodology that can be scaled, that can be repeated, that gives you quality control, that reduces your costs when it comes to training because you already have the templates, the outlines, the checklists, the written form of this is how we do this thing. So when anybody comes into your business, or if somebody's out sick and needs to fill in for somebody else, you have a consistent way of performing the duties in your business and providing consistent customer service because you want to build brand loyalty, you want to build loyalty, you want to have those referrals come into your business.
mm. Okay. Wow. This is amazing, amazing wisdom. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm curious. You mentioned, I think she said she was your friend, who had like
Hmm.
two different avatars, and then kind of smushed
Hmm.
them together, and it didn't work. I was in a similar
Right.
position, like very, very similar. So I'm curious about that. And I think especially a lot of beginning coaches do this all the time,
Hmm.
like all the time. Oh my God, like I want to help all the people, I want to help everybody or whatnot. And then they create
Yes.
like you called it the super avatar, but that just doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
So you have to be really, really specific with the avatar, right? So what if you have
Yes.
two avatars and like two different offers? Do you have
Hmm.
two completely different businesses or do you have two completely different channels? Or is it in one
So,
business under one roof, but just two
yeah,
avatars and you switch between them?
exactly. So when you're marketing to a woman who is looking for some kind of change in her life, let's say she's looking at going to retire from corporate and start her own business, that's very different messaging than talking to a man who's a business owner and he's looking to sell his business and retire. So really, you've got parallel tracks, right? So it really goes back into your sales cycle. What does your
Mm,
sales cycle look like? What are you selling? And then you work it out on your marketing calendar. And I like to look at a year at a time and say, these are the things that I'm selling this year. This is when I am selling them. So you don't want to sell two things at the same time, right? You want to be very
mm,
clear in what's going on. You want to ask your clients or potential clients to do one thing. You don't want to give them multiple things that are going to confuse them in what your offers are. And so her female clients often are wonderful referral partners for her because they know people who are male business owners. And a lot of the people that she deals with are in that retirement age. So, it makes sense. It isn't like women in their 20s, men in their 60s,
Right, right,
across
right.
the board, that demographic, right? She's in that demographic, so that makes sense. So you don't necessarily have to have things that go together, but because she works in business, it makes sense for what she's doing, helping women transition from corporate into starting a business, right? Helping men in business sell their business and move on. And so it just depends on what your certifications are. And she ended up getting into the whole valuation and selling your business and looking at what that process is, because men are married to women typically, right? And so there's the big question, not always, but
Yeah, yeah.
typically in that demographic, um, there's this question of, who am I going to be in retirement? So you've got the women looking for change. How am I going to react when I retire, when my husband retires? Who are we going to become together when we become empty nesters? And so that's kind of how those two things work. You've got the men who are looking to retire. I need to sell my business. I need to figure that out. But then you've got the spouse who's saying, who am I going to be? Who are my friends going to be? How am I going to fill my time? What's my identity? Are my friends still going to be my friends? Am I going to be bored? Do I still have value? How do I contribute? Right. And
Mm,
so, as opposite as those sound and as disconnected, there really is that connection in there.
yeah. So it they kind of bridge together. However,
Hmm.
you pointed out sales cycles and a marketing calendar, right? So
Right.
she is not selling to the same people at the same time. So
Correct.
what is actually a sales cycle? What do you mean with that, and how does that work?
Sure. So I call that the rhythm of your business,
Hmm.
right? Depending on, and I work primarily with coaches and consultants in my business. Okay, so a lot of my references will be coaching. So it
Yes.
depends on what it is that you sell. So for
Hmm.
instance, I have some coaches who sell once a year. They sell between October and December. They sell into a 12-month group coaching program. That is their income for the entire year. So that's what their
Wow.
sales cycle looks like. I have some people who sell 12-week programs, and so they sell once a quarter. I have some people who sell 6-month programs, so they have two big things twice a year. I have a couple clients who have a big um, mastermind that they do that is once a year, but then they do smaller little things throughout the year just to bring in a little bit of revenue.
Yeah.
Um, I have some people in my corporate career. I was a professional meeting planner and special event planner. And so I have some clients who run events. So I have one client who runs one major conference a year, but she does tiny little things that lead up to and feed into that big conference. And so, your sales cycle also includes your lead generation. So some of my people will do lead generation events like a webinar, like a challenge, like a sprint, those types of things. And then those become feeder events into whatever program or process that they're selling.
Mm, awesome.
And so it can look
Awesome.
different. There isn't a right or wrong, in my
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
opinion. It's what works for you. Some people espouse big ticket. I sell less in number, but larger dollar. Some people feel more comfortable with a smaller dollar reaching more people.
Yeah.
And so it just depends, where are you at in your journey? What is really comfortable to you? And then what can you grow into? And it's really interesting because as people change their mindset about money, and when they really start to own their value and what they bring to the table, when they charge higher ticket, often they're far more successful than when they're trying just to sell a lot of small ticket items.
Yeah.
Because what really happens is people self select and opt out because they feel at that low ticket item or dollar amount
Mm,
that they are further along in their journey than you are. And so when you really charge what you're worth, people see your value, they see your experience, they pay more attention to you, you stand out in the crowd
mm.
more easily.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And that was definitely my journey as well. Definitely much more successful with selling a higher ticket than
Right.
um trying to have a lot of volume with small ticket. It just didn't really work out the way I planned it. It was so interesting to me because my brain again, like my maybe this was partly because the way I was raised, but it was like factory work, right? And I was like, okay, I make $3.50 an hour with my normal job, right? So like
Right.
selling something for $1,000 was like just there's no way,
Mind blowing.
right?
Right.
There's absolutely no way. So I'm like, but
Right.
okay, but selling something for $20 that sounds actually doable, right? But I
Right.
would have to sell so much of that. So
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, like once I started working on this, I started hearing that like, oh, it takes the same amount of energy and almost the same amount of skill of selling something that's $20 and selling something that's $1,000. It's just
Right.
really just the number that's different. I'm like, nah, there's no way. Like that's absolutely it's got to be so much easier to sell something that's $20, not something that's $1,000, right? Like, come on.
Right.
And then I started doing it. I'm like, whoa,
Whoa.
they
It's
were
it's
right.
magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels counterintuitive, like you said. And, some of my clients have digital items. They have
Mm,
courses that they sell, they have books that they sell. And so they've got this residual income on something that they created once. And that's something that we teach people too, is you need to own your space. You need to build
mm,
authority in your space. You can do that through books, through speaking, through courses, all of those types of things, but take the content that you have and repurpose it. Don't keep creating all this new stuff. That's exhausting. Find your lane, own your lane, right? A really great book for your listeners to read is The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. It gives
mm.
some really great advice on how to own your piece of the real estate in a very busy and complicated marketing space. And so, if you can really know who you are, own your piece of the real estate, people will be attracted to you automatically because you're doing
What did you say the book was?
22 immutable laws of marketing.
Thank you. Okay. This is awesome. I'm curious, how was it for you with your money mindset, right? Because again, like this is maybe where we have a different, where we've had a different journey, and
Right.
because I had to I had to put so much work and so much reframing on my
Hmm.
money mindset because I was used to just like the only way to make money is here with
Right.
your hard work in a factory. That's it. So how was
Right.
that for you? Was that a more of a smooth transition, or did you also have some struggles with how much you're worth
Hmm.
and how much you can charge and like how you exchange value and all of this?
Sure. That's an excellent question. First of all, I'd like to say I think we all have our own money mindset struggles, no matter where we come from, right?
Mm,
Um, and it's really interesting. Way back in the day, I sold Mary Kay Cosmetics. I
okay.
could not sell cosmetics to save my life, to do it for myself. If I was selling for my director, I could sell all day long. I don't know why that is to this day, but for me to ask for a sale was so hard. But if I was doing it for someone else, super easy. When I started my mortgage business, there was it was a very easy thing for me.
Okay.
We made money. We made a lot of money, selling mortgages. And it was very easy for me to say, we made $100,000 this month. Super easy to do. We served this many clients and saw that money coming in. Somehow it wasn't attributed to me personally. It was the process, the system, right? The government regulations on this is what's required, this is what you do, everyone goes through the same steps. When I stepped into the world of coaching and consulting, it was very difficult for me because my mortgage business had failed. And so in
Mm,
my mind, the question was, why would anybody listen to me about what it takes to run a business, to scale a business, to grow a business, to make money in a business when my own business had failed? That was a huge, huge hurdle for me to get over. And I had to say that it didn't go away overnight, certainly. There was this shame that was attached to it. There was some blame that was attached to it because of government decisions that happened, impacted my business and businesses like mine. But what I will say to you is that when COVID hit, it was a similar set of circumstances where people lost their livelihood due to no fault of their own. They needed to figure out how to learn how to make money from home and make it quickly. So the things that I went through in 2008, 2009, excuse me, which were tragic, which were horrific, which were hard, super hard, um, all of a sudden became a superpower for me. And there was a big time span in there, but it was much easier in that instance for me to charge what I was worth because I had gone through the pain. I had skinned my knees. I had many sleepless nights, right? But I figured it out. And so I was able to fast track where people were at to help them get an immediate result. And so I think once I was able to flip that switch in my mind and say, this is why I am valuable, this is why I
mm,
can charge this amount, and I could mm, find that equilibrium where before it was like it wasn't that I didn't feel value personally, but there was this nagging question of, are you enough? Are you good enough? If you were, you would have figured out a way to keep your mortgage business alive, right? And so I had to, there's another book that's really good called Positive Intelligence. And in the book, the author really talks about self sabotaging messages. And so I really had to get to the point where I could call out those voices in my head and say, that's not true. This is really what the truth is in the situation. And so when I could start to control my inner dialogue, it really equated into my ability to charge what I believe that I'm worth. And I'll tell you, there have been many times in our family businesses, we have charged on the high end of the market and we have outperformed lower priced people. Because when you know that you have quality, you know that you have value, you know that um, you are providing a service or solution that nobody else has, you can be that premium brand. You can be that luxury brand. But you have to know that you know that you know that you know that what you're delivering is at that level. And we all get there at different times in our career and through different ways. But I think really controlling our self talk is key to being
mm,
able to. And this is really an interesting thing. When I went through my coaching certification, I was at a certification weekend, and it just turned out that I was the only woman sitting at a table with 8 men. And I never hear men talk about their worth and their value
mm.
and charging what they're worth. And there were many men who were sitting there who said, I don't know how I'm ever going to make money being a coach. I can buy a house for $500,000. I can drop $7,000 on a refrigerator and range for my wife. I can spend $75,000 on a pickup truck, but if somebody asks me how much I charge for my coaching, I can't say the word out loud. I can't do
Wow.
it. And that was a real eye-opening thing for me because at that point I thought that charging what you're worth was really a woman's issue because that
Mm.
was what women always were talking about in my group. It's like, how am I going to level up? How am I going to get to that next level? But silently, men really struggle with that same concept too. They just don't talk about it as openly. But it
Mm.
was really interesting that, we all in our own way struggle with that. Whether you came from a high power, high ranking position and you started in this business, or you were a secretary and you came in and, this is what your new thing is, we all have that journey.
Yeah. Wow, awesome. What was it like for you? You said it was very hard because your original business or your mortgage business kind of like failed through no fault of your own, right? But then you went through
Hmm.
the transition of consulting and coaching. So why would you even push through with that? Like how did you justify it to yourself in the moment when you're like questioning, okay, should I do this? Like, does it
Hmm.
make any sense? Because my business failed. So like, who would listen
Right.
to me? Who would listen to my advice? How did you justify it to
Right.
yourself?
So I don't know if when you were a little kid, you were being punished and maybe your parents had you sit in a corner with your nose facing in the corner, and you're like, I'm sitting down, but inside I'm standing up. And you can't stop me from standing up in my mind, right? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I don't know if you ever felt that way. I felt that way as a kid a lot.
Okay,
It was
I
like,
don't I don't
you're
think so.
making me,
Okay, okay,
no, okay. Well, it was this thing of, I would have to sit in the corner until, whatever, until I said I was sorry. Well, if I wasn't
okay,
sorry, it's like, I'm not going to tell you I'm sorry because I'm
okay.
not sorry. I'll sit here, I'll prove my point, right? I'm really
Hmm.
stubborn that way. So the fact that I had people telling me, you can't make a living running an online
Mm,
business, it was
okay,
like, don't tell me what I can't. I'll show you what I can do. So it was that little girl inside of me saying,
okay.
you might be telling me to sit down, but in my mind, I'm standing and I'm standing tall. It was like, I'll show you that I could do this.
Mm,
And,
okay.
over the years, I've been in my online business since 2009. I've done a lot of reinventing.
Wow.
The market has changed. And so my services have changed. My coaching processes have changed. My clientele has changed. And in the beginning, we talked about your avatar. Your avatar is going to change with you as you grow and change and evolve. It isn't a one and done situation where it's like, I identified who this person is, because they're going to grow and evolve as they go through your products, as they use your services. That's just the way human nature works, right? And so you just have to be able to really say, what's in it for me? What's my why? You know, my why at that time too was, I'm a single mom. And I want the freedom, because we're all looking for different freedom, right? I want the freedom to be able to make a good living, to have the flexibility to be able to be where I need to be for my kids' activities. I want to have the ability to travel. I want to have the ability to work anywhere. For a while I lived in Belize. I just got back from 4 months in Hawaii. I
Wow.
have the opportunity to live anywhere in the world where there's internet connection. I can do what I want when I want with who I want. And that's the beauty of it. The alternative is going back and punching a time clock and doing something on someone
Mm,
else's timeline. And that is so hard. It's so hard. If I want to get up in the morning at 3 o'clock and work until 10 and be done, I can do that as long as I'm hitting all of my deadlines, right? If
yeah.
I want to take Fridays off every week, I can do that. You know, I get to choose the rules. I get to decide what my life is going to be like. For a while I was a competitive ballroom dancer. And so, my why was, I
Oh.
need to make more money to buy more dresses and shoes and dance in more competitions, right? That's a huge motivator. Um, you know, But again, I had to have the freedom to say, oh, I'm taking off 5 days this week because I'm traveling to Las Vegas and I'm going to dance in a dance competition.
Mm,
You can't always do that when you work for somebody. And
yeah.
so I think we all need to know what motivates us. What's our why? What's our drive? What makes it worthwhile? Because owning your own business isn't always, you know, all sunshine and rainbows.
Oh,
I mean,
oh
I
no,
wish that it were,
oh
but
no, it
there's
isn't.
there are some tough days. There are some tough lessons to learn. There are failures along the way. And that's just part of the growth journey. And you just have to say, all right, what's the lesson learned? What could I have done differently? What could I have done better? And, then you move on. You might give yourself time to cry and pout and just get it out. Um, but then you just eventually have to say, okay, that's enough. I gave myself time to deal with the emotions because you don't want to suppress it, right? You want to feel
Yeah,
all the feels, but then you have to say, okay, it's time to move on. What
yeah.
what do I do? How do I fix this? Where do I need support? Who can I reach out and ask a question to? And then you just keep going.
This is amazing. You have amazing value, amazing wisdom. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. You also have this like really warm, welcoming personality. It feels really nice to listen to you as well. And
Thank you.
I'm curious, what's next for you? What's the next stage in life for you? What are you up to? What's your next goals?
What is my next goals? That's really great. Well, I'll tell you, I just turned 60 this year. And so I
Okay,
am looking
congrats.
at 5 years of working full time.
Mm,
And so I'm looking towards retirement. But in the meantime, one of the things that is core value for me in my business is empowering people, collaborating over competition, and innovating. And so over the next 5 years, I really want to be able to model that in my business. Um, this year, I wrote my first co authored book. I'm doing some collaborative coaching with some other coaches.
okay.
And actually, today I'm launching a podcast with one of the people I'm collaborating with and who was a co
Yay.
author. And so, so many people look at other people in their circle strictly as competition.
Mm,
And those people could be great collaborators with you. This guy coach that I'm collaborating with, we do the same thing, but from totally different perspectives. And we have found that by coming together and joining forces, that we are providing so much value together. And it's making it like really fun. And all of these organic opportunities are just appearing from these partnerships. And so we want to be able to bring more people into our circle and be able to expand that concept and be able to help people see that sometimes opportunities show up in ways that we don't expect it. Um, but also, um, we don't have to be in business by ourselves. One of the things that I hear entrepreneurs and solopreneurs especially say is it's so lonely in the online space. This is a great way for you to build out a team to be
mm,
able to offer more value to your clients. Um, we had some situations that came up this week. We're running two group coaching classes together, and there were some things that came up, and he's like, I've got this plumbing issue, we've got a group coaching call today, can you take it? And so it was, phenomenal, not to say, oh, I've got to reschedule this because this thing came up, I've got this
right,
emergency. We're able to step in and fill in, and it gives more freedom, more flexibility. And again, like I said, there's just opportunities that are coming together because not everybody is a great fit for us. And I get
right,
that. I'm not the best fit for everybody, but you know what? Some people might be the best fit for him. I've got this trusted referral partner that I already do business with. And to be able to build out a network that way, I think has a lot of power in helping solopreneurs really become small business owners and create that freedom in their life that they're looking for
mm,
and to do it faster.
okay. when you're setting up these collaborations or almost like an alliance, are you
Mhm.
looking to have people who have the same avatar or and complementing services, or is it
Yes.
even the same services, or is it different avatars with complementing services? How does that work with your
You know
current
what?
setup?
It can be any and all of the
Okay.
above, which is the beautiful thing. So ideally, you serve a similar avatar.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, right? You want some overlap because when you look at lead generation, you want people who are downstream from you who are going to feed into where you are. So they're passing up. And then you want people who, where do I pass them to when they're done with me? To be able to have that referral system. So when you look at collaborations, you want to say, what do we do that's complementary? What do we do that's different? How can we work together? So I'm going to give this example of Monty is my partner. We both work with helping people identify their ideal avatar
Mm-hmm.
and being able to create personal branding, but we come at it from two entirely different angles. So one of the things that which is great. So we're able to come together and create something better than we had on our own.
Mm.
One of our colleagues teaches people how to use video in their business. That isn't something that we're experts at. But because we work with coaches and consultants, creating great video content is really important. So we bring him into the fold because, again, we serve a very similar avatar, but we're offering a different service in this instance. We have another colleague who teaches stage presence and confidence and speaking skills. And so bringing him in. So what we all do is kind of similar. It all works in content creation, which we also teach. And
Mm.
so it's like, how can you repurpose your content? I can help with creating the rhythm in your business. I can help with done for you content creation. I can help you repurpose your content. They can help you create original video content and show up in a great way. So again, looking at what do you do in your business? What do your clients need? Who do you know that provides a service that is complementary or makes sense? What's the next logical step? Can I outsource to these people? Yes. Could I collaborate and create an affiliate relationship? Could I do a joint venture? There's a lot of different opportunities that you can create. So if you don't see an opportunity, you can create your own opportunity, which in some circles is called creating an economy of one, right? You're creating
Mm.
your own economy, your own
Yeah.
ecosystem, right? Russell Brunson would call it creating your own blue ocean, right? Get rid of the sharks that are out there creating those red oceans, bring them into your blue ocean and do more together than what you could do apart.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, so I see it's like a little bit, it's the same, let's say, puzzle, but each person brings in like a little piece of the
Exactly.
puzzle.
Right,
Mm.
right.
Okay.
Because it all goes into business building, right? You might have someone who is spectacular at lead generation. I am not a lead generation guru, but every single one of my clients needs lead generation, right?
Yes.
And so having an expert that I collaborate with who's on my team just adds value to what I can offer my
Mm.
clients.
Mm. Okay. I see. Yeah, that's really awesome. Wow.
Yeah,
Again, so much wisdom. Even so much wisdom. That's I've definitely fully enjoyed this conversation.
me
So thanks for
too.
being here. Thanks for doing this. Last question I will have. What is your idea of retirement, right? You said you're looking at 5 years
Mm,
of work full time until you retire. What do you picture
right.
yourself doing after those 5 years?
All right. You promise not to laugh at me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to buy a castle in France and renovate it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I
That
know.
that sounds like an amazing passion project. Honestly.
Doesn't
Wow.
it sound like fun?
Okay. That
Yeah,
sounds
we've been
awesome.
researching it for years. And so over the
Damn.
next couple years, I plan
Wow.
to go over to France and live for 60 or 90 days in different areas and figure out
Wow.
where it is I want to be. And in the meantime, I used to be fluent in French. I'm not anymore, so I'm working on my French skills. And I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to volunteer, and I want to renovate a castle and sit back and drink wine and enjoy friendship and life, my grandbabies, my family,
Mm,
and
awesome. I love that. Wow. That
yeah.
would never even come to my mind. But maybe later.
Maybe
Maybe later
later.
in life, like a
Right.
couple decades or something. I'm 24, so I'm not really thinking about renovating castles yet. I've been thinking about like creating, like building new power plants and stuff, and like figuring out some clean energy like geothermal power and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um but renovating is awesome. Why would anybody laugh at you about that? Come on. That's really awesome.
Oh, people tell me how dumb that is all the time. They're like, "You want to
Uh,
do what? That's so expensive. Why would you want to do
yeah,
that?
right?
Castles are gold." And it's like, "Oh, but all of the history, all of the charm, all of the character." And,
Okay.
I'd like to have a little farm. I want to grow my own
Mm,
food and um just, you know, eco-friendly.
mm,
Maybe do some cooking classes, and maybe part of that will be a bed and breakfast and bring people in and do something
yeah.
fun. I don't know what all of
Mm,
that looks like
mm.
just yet, but
Bed and
yeah,
breakfast in a castle? Sign
wouldn't that
me
be
up.
fun?
Sign me
Right?
up. That sounds
I
amazing.
know. Doesn't it sound fun? So much
Mm,
character. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's awesome.
that's what I
Uh,
think retirement looks like for me.
wonderful. Okay. Would you have any closing statements or something to leave me and leave people with?
So, first of all, I just want to thank you again for having me on this chat. Has been so much fun. And I think, you know, the last thought I would like to leave with you all is if you can believe it, you can achieve it. If you want to build a business, do it. Do it. Embrace the hard, celebrate in the wins, put one step in front of the other, and do it because you can make it happen. You can design the life that you want to live, both personally and professionally. And if there's a roadblock, there's a way to go over it, under it, around it. Ask for help. So many of us let our ego get in the way. I don't want to appear dumb. I don't want to appear this way. I don't want to be judged. Seek out a mentor. They will help you get to where you want to go faster.
Wow. Amazing. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. Thank you so much
Yes.
for your time. Thank you so much for doing this. And
Thank you.
yeah,